Okay, so welcome everybody to the Crossroads webinar and Mastermind. My name is Gertrude Mache. Today I am based here in Melbourne, Australia. Normally you would find me in Wellington, New Zealand, which is home. And I really have to apologize to those of you who missed coming on live. I've just realized that the link that I put on LinkedIn is taking you to my funnel where you would have registered to get the link for Zoom. So next time I will put the Zoom link. I will recreate tomorrow's event and give you the link. So this is a 3-part mastermind called Crossroads. I target women over 50 who are either going through a separation, a divorce, are widowed, wanting to transition careers and reinvent themselves, or somebody who's just in search of inspiration to do something different with their lives. Now, why women over 50? I'm 54 years old myself, and I realized that I love working with women over 50 for a number of reasons. Number one, they're very decisive. They know exactly what they want. If they see something of value, they will grab the opportunity to connect, and they don't have to consult a husband or a partner to make that decision. And they also have the stories that need to be told, that need to be shared with the world. So it really excites me to work with women over the age of 50. So I'm going to share with you today who I am, how I have come to being where I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. So you get an essence of what's coming in this webinar. The webinar has a component to it called the Visioneering Toolbox, and it's all about perfecting the inner pictures in your mind so that you can create the future that you want. So I have lived an absolutely magical life and been very, very fortunate in that all of the things that I have envisaged for myself have actually come true. So I'll share a little bit about my journey, and then we will open up the floor for questions and answers, because as from tomorrow, it's going to be about you. And I want to make sure that I am delivering appropriate content. So the tagline to today is Inspired Ideas Ignited. How do you get an idea out of your head and turn it into reality? So I was born in Zimbabwe in 1967. Like I said, I'm 54 years old. And I always knew what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to use my voice. I became an actress when I was in high school. I took part in Shakespearean art. I became a member of the Zimbabwe Association of Community Theatres. And we were young political activists spreading political messages through plays. So for those of you who don't know, Zimbabwe was a dictatorship for the last 35 years. And you could not have a public gathering in Zimbabwe without a permit from the government. So we were just young kids who realized that if we created a play, we could share our political messages through those plays, and we did it really effectively. And that was the beginning of my activist journey. I remember one day visiting my grandmother, and World Health flew into our village with a helicopter, and they were dropping flyers and condoms to people who could not read. It was an AIDS awareness campaign. I watched the parents running and catching these pieces of paper and lighting their fires. I watched the kids catching the condoms and blowing them up and turning them into balloons and running around the village with balloons. And the campaign was totally ineffective. So I wrote to World Health and I asked them to sponsor me to write a play that had an AIDS theme to it. And I created an all-women's theater group called Just for Women Theater. And we would go into the rural villages in Zimbabwe, acting and dancing in this play, conscientizing people about the spread of AIDS. And that became the beginning of my journey as an activist, as somebody who wants to empower other women and spread knowledge through storytelling. I then got involved in the making of my first feature film, which was directed by Sir Richard Attenborough, and Denzel Washington was the main actor in this film. And because of apartheid, they came to Zimbabwe to film. And I took part in this magical, magical experience. It again gave me the passion to write and write my own plays, write my own movie scripts. I then got married. I have 3 beautiful children who were born exactly one day apart. My oldest son is now 32. He was born on the 18th of September. My daughter is 30. She was born on the 16th, and my youngest is born on the 17th. And my joke is I was married to an obstetrician, and whenever he sneezed at Christmas, I got pregnant. So I have 3 beautiful kids. I'm now a grandmother. I'm speaking to you from Melbourne, Australia. I'm here with my daughter, enjoying my first grandson who was born about 8 weeks ago. So my journey turned into a serial social entrepreneur. I managed to move to New Zealand 21 years ago. But prior to that, while I was in high school, I created a coaching business. I created a clothing business called Simzisani and paid my way through university designing traditional African clothes. So when I moved to South Africa in 1994, you couldn't buy African clothing in shops because of apartheid. And my mother was a seamstress, and she taught me how to fabric paint, how to do tie-dyes, how to do batik. And I turned it into a business when I was a student. And I ended up dressing parliamentarians in South Africa, in the new South Africa, when people couldn't buy African clothing in shops. And that's how I paid the money to sponsor my 3-year degree. I studied business and came out with a business degree, majored in industrial psychology and management. Then 21 years ago, we made a decision to move to New Zealand, which is home now for me. And I opened my first business. I first worked as a systems analyst, so IT is my background as well. I program computers in BASIC, Pascal, and COBOL, but finished my career in IT as a systems analyst and a business analyst. So when I moved to New Zealand, I came in on the skilled migrant visa. And it was difficult because I was alone with 3 children under 12, trying to have a full-time job. And I quit my job and opened this small shop, went back to my art, started painting my fabrics, and started exporting my product to the United States. I couldn't sell anything in New Zealand. As you know, New Zealand has got 5,000 people, 16,000 sheep. And I discovered very fast that unless I was selling something to the sheep, I could not make a living with a shop in New Zealand. I ran this shop for a year though, and my kids could walk home from school, come to the shop in the afternoon. And it was just magical because I found a way to look after my kids and stay in New Zealand. Nicole, my husband did come to New Zealand in the end, but it took a whole year. When he came to New Zealand, unfortunately, as a doctor, he could not get registration with the Medical Council of New Zealand. So he had to go to Australia. He went to Queensland and worked in rural outback Australia for a year. So for that first year, I was alone in a foreign country, 3 children under 12, and I was losing it. After a year, my husband came back to New Zealand, did get a job, and we were together for 27 years before we went through a separation and a divorce in 2015. And I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But the gift that this experience gave me was sitting in this shop, bored stiff, with no one buying my products. I created a website, and then people started ordering my product from the United States, from the UK. Other people who were scattered in the diaspora started buying my hand-painted products online. So after a year, I realized I was wasting money sitting in this shop. And please do ask questions like what you just did, Nicole. I'm paying attention to the chat. And I took this business home. But I hit on my first $1 million idea sitting in this shop, bored stiff. When my husband was job hunting, I saw hundreds of vacancies for doctors. And I realized there was a shortage for health professionals in New Zealand and Australia. So I wrote back to Africa to all of our friends, asked them if they wanted to come to New Zealand. 5 of my husband's friends said yes. I knew how to register them. I created a recruiting agency and I went into business, had a medical recruiting business called Medical Recruiters of New Zealand. And I would bring in health professionals to New Zealand and Australia and ran that company for 13 years. After 13 years, that business went down. The government stopped paying recruiting agencies. So again, I had to reinvent myself and find another way to make a living. I was invoicing $25,000 a month to bring in doctors to New Zealand. I actually made $125,000 in my first 3 months of business, sitting in my bedroom slippers at home. I used the money from that medical recruiting business to create a property business. I started buying houses in New Zealand 21 years ago when you didn't even need a deposit to buy a house. I bought my first house in the right neighborhood at the right time. That property went up in value by $100,000 in 1 year. I pulled out the equity to buy a second property, a third one, a fourth, a fifth. In 6 years, I had bought 7 properties in Wellington. By 2014, I had 14 properties worth $4.5 million. And that property business really helped me create what could be my future. But I lost everything when I went through my divorce. And I'll talk about that story again a little bit later. My second business in New Zealand was created around the making of the movie King Kong. When Peter Jackson filmed Lord of the Rings, I started stalking him. You know, living in New Zealand, I realized that you could get access to anyone in New Zealand if you really try. And Peter Jackson and his team were running workshops. They were giving presentations about the making of Lord of the Rings. And I started stalking Peter Jackson. I would go to every presentation he gave. One day I went to a presentation. It wasn't Peter Jackson who was speaking. It was the guy who designed the spider in Lord of the Rings. And something made me put up my hand and ask the question if I could act in the next film. And they were casting for King Kong and looking for 350 African extras to take part in one film. And I realized there was a business opportunity there. I approached the casting director and said that I could supply all the ethnic extras. I knew I could do it because I was already working with the refugee service in Wellington. I was working with the Wellington City Council's ethnic forum, so I knew a lot of people with brown skin. And I created a database that I sold to Weta and supplied all the ethnic extras that took part in King Kong, that took part in Avatar, got to act in both movies with James Cameron and Peter Jackson, and went back to film school to become a filmmaker. I studied at Avalon Studios, which trains everybody for TVNZ, and did a course in TV and film production and started working on my own movie script. In 2004, Oprah went to South Africa. I remember it was Christmas. I was having Christmas lunch and a girlfriend called me and said, Gertrude, switch on the TV, Oprah's in South Africa. And she was standing on this soccer pitch. She had 50,000 orphaned children because of the AIDS pandemic. And at this point in her show, she opened up her hands and she said, this is the lost generation of Africa. These are children who's lost one parent or both. Africa needs help. And Oprah reminded me what I had left behind. I called my mother immediately and I asked my mom how many orphan children were in our family. You see, this is my second pandemic. I lived in the 80s when HIV and AIDS was rampant in Southern Africa. My grandmother had 11 children, 34 grandchildren. 19 of my first cousins died of HIV-related diseases, including my youngest brother. So I thought, how could I make money to support my immediate family members? And I wrote a book. And that book turned into what is now my career. The book is called Born on the Continent, Ubuntu. And when this book was going to print, I decided to self-publish it. I woke up in a dream and I was given a prophecy of my life, where I would be 100 years from now. The dream was of my funeral, and somebody was lowering my body into the ground and reading my eulogy. And they said what I would achieve in this life. I remember 21 years ago writing down everything that was in that dream, and it turned into the last chapter of my first book. When people read my book, they get a bit confused because it says that I'm dead, but it was the prophecy of everything I would do in my life going forwards. And everything has come true. The fact that I would work on a movie script that would win 8 Oscars, that I would start a foundation that would support AIDS orphans in Zimbabwe. The subtitle of my book is the word Ubuntu. The literal translation of Ubuntu is, I am because you are. In Ubuntu, we believe that there is no you, there is no me, there's only we. And it's when you start paying attention to the people who come into your life that the magic really happens. And that has been the story of my life. I wrote about all of the people who have helped me along the way. People who showed up like angels when I needed help. And, you know, we're on this call right now. I put this on LinkedIn. I know a lot of people on LinkedIn, and a few people responded. They said, yes, they want to come. I want to ask you now, because you're listening, what made you curious? What made you come online and listen to this mastermind? Just type in the chat. I'd love to get your feedback. Nicole. Olia.
Okay, so I got a reminder in my notification.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd check it out.
You were curious. Awesome.
Yeah,
Heidi.
I was curious. Yeah.
Heidi, what made you come online?
I have, of course, known you since our days in Academy.
Yes.
And I have been always inspired by you, always curious to know you and perchance to work with you someday. And I've always wanted to get to know you better. I've always been proud to know you. You're so inspiring. You're always so upward moving and joyful to be around. And I think you were in my laughter club on Academy.
Yes, we were in the same club. I remember that. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was years ago. It's almost 20 years ago.
Yes, I know.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And Olia, you responded. I know that I invited you personally, but you also responded to something else that I put out. Why did you respond?
Just curiosity. I didn't know you. I didn't read a lot about you. Just curiosity. And your approach was very nice, sort of. And I thought, I was in, you know, you like inviting me, and I wanted to accept your invitation. It was very warm and white. I couldn't say no.
Thank you. Yeah, so sometimes in life we show up for things not really knowing why we're showing up, not knowing why the person who's given you that invitation has pulled you in. And what has happened in my life is I have a series of events like this, where I've said yes to an invitation and it doesn't make any sense. And I look back in retrospect and I can actually see the dots that got me to where I am now. And that's what I'll be sharing with you for the next 3 days with this mastermind. How to see the signs, how to tap in and feel your way into things, even if it doesn't make sense. So let me share the rest of my story. So pay attention to the people who come into your life. They don't just show up for no reason. So when I got involved with my project, I started looking at the children in my immediate family. And when I looked into the eyes of the orphaned kids in my family, I could see the little future Nelson Mandelas that were waiting to be nurtured, waiting to be looked after, waiting to be given an opportunity to go to school so they could reach their full potential. And I committed to raising money through the selling of my book. I would sell 100 copies a month by speaking for free in social networking groups like Rotary or Lions groups or Probus. Before I knew it, the people who came to those events would pass my name to events planners. It turned into a 21-year speaking career. In the last 21 years, I've been a keynote speaker in 56 countries. I can't tell you how many cities, how many towns, how many villages in between. And it was just out of giving that I received the most amazing gift in finding my biggest strength, which is to be a speaker. So I created this program. I started looking after the kids and making sure that they got something to eat every day. We had a drought in 2007, and I would go to the school in Zimbabwe, and I would watch the kids come to school. Within 10 minutes, these children would all fall asleep. It was a primary school with kids from the age of 4 all the way up to 12, and they would fall asleep. When I asked the principal why this was happening, he said to me, Gertrude, most kids are eating 2 or 3 times a week if they are lucky. So I started this feeding program. And all of the villagers in my community started sending their children to our school to get something to eat, even the under 5-year-olds. It forced me to start a preschool. And it was a double-edged sword because the kids were getting an education, they were getting nutrition. We had more children in our school than we could manage. And it helped grow the school community as well. So the Africa Education Foundation started refurbishing dilapidated schools in Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwean government has not touched the rural schools in 25 years. Buildings are collapsing. Libraries have no writing material. I started collecting books by doing a 10-minute assembly presentation in schools all over New Zealand. When I would speak at a school, I would tell the principal to tell the children to bring any books they don't want. In 90 days, I collected 65,000 books and filled this container. My Rotary Club actually bought the container for me. It is sitting in the harbor in Wellington right now, ready to be shipped to Zimbabwe. And the vision is when this container gets to my community, I empty out the books and I build a library. Then the container is going to be refurbished into the first health clinic in my community. People are dying of AIDS in Zimbabwe in 2021 because of poverty and politics. The Zimbabwean government is not distributing the free AIDS drugs that are available in the country. The people in my village did not vote for the regime in the last elections, so we have been cut off from the free drugs. So what I will do is I will stock this container and turn it into a clinic, put windows and doors, air conditioning, hire a private nurse and buy her a car. And once a month, she will go and pick up the World Health workers and bring them to this community. It costs $2 to get on a bus in Zimbabwe to go to the nearest town where you can get free medication. People do not have $2. The average income in my community is 30 US cents a month. Zimbabwe is a country without a currency. We are using US dollars. So for most people who don't have children who live overseas, people have gone back to bartering for basic food commodities like sugar and salt. We have no physical cash. People are using US dollars. So that's what I'm doing in my community right now. Now, to fund this, I created another business. This company is called Walk on the Wild Side Tours. It was thriving before COVID. And I would take people to Zimbabwe on a 15-day trip, and they would get to experience what it is to be African. These are 3 of the first ladies who put up their hands to come with me. My trips cost $15,000 US. I show people how to make the money to come. These were just friends of mine who said to me, Gertrude, we love the idea, we'll come with you. We created what's called the Africa Inspired Gala Dinner. And these ladies would find a venue where we could self-cater, and I would fly to that town and be the gourmet chef for the night. So my mother used to have a restaurant. I grew up cooking African food. And the ladies all had to sell 100 tickets at $150 a ticket. That is 15,000 US dollars. So when I try and aim to make money, if it's $15,000, I chunk it down to a lowest point where it's affordable. So they all sold their 100 tickets. I flew to their cities. One was in Auckland, one was in Timaru in the South Island, one was in Tauranga on the North Island. We raised $55,000 between the four of us that year. And we went to Zimbabwe. So it's called Walk on the Wild Side because you spend the first 5 days in a village with a community that has no electricity, no running water, experiencing what it is to be African. The last 5 days is 5-star. I take you to the Victoria Falls. We go bungee jumping off the Victoria Falls Bridge, whitewater rafting. You go for a walk in the bush with these 15 grown lions. I have a lion conservation project that I support in the Victoria Falls, and it is the most exhilarating and humbling thing you can do to walk in the bush with these majestic animals. So the prophecy, the vision I was given is that I am going to win 8 Oscars. So I've been working on a feature film based on my life story. It is based on the AIDS pandemic, the story of my little brother who died of AIDS. He was born when I was 11 years old. And I remember my mom used to put this baby on my back and I would care for him. Unfortunately, he contacted the disease. He gave up hope. He was on the medication, but he gave up the will to live. And I learned so much from my brother's passing that any disease is a mindset. HIV and AIDS, you can survive it if you have the right mindset. So I've been working with people infected with the AIDS virus, and I try and help them get out of that mindset that if you're infected, you're going to die. Unfortunately, everything came to a halt in 2017, where I collapsed with congestive heart failure in a rice field on holiday in Bali. So Nicole, you asked about my husband. We were married for 27 years. I thought I would die with that man. That wasn't to be. After 27 years, we had grown apart. The children had grown up and left the house. We went our separate ways. I was severely depressed. I was on the point of committing suicide with sadness. I had a recurring dream that I would hang myself on my balcony, and my youngest son would come home from school and see me dangling on my balcony. When that dream came 3 times, I realized my mind was taking me to very dark places. So I packed my suitcases and I left my husband. And I traveled for almost 2 years, just completely lost. In those 2 years, I went to 14 countries, ended up living in New Mexico in the United States, in Albuquerque. While I was there, I developed a strange headache, a dry cough that only came at night. I would go to this emergency center. They would give me cough mixture, headache medication, and send me home. I got progressively worse. And my kids said to me, Mom, you've got to come back home, come back to New Zealand, get proper health care. So I came back to New Zealand, went and saw my doctor. I had high blood pressure that had been missed when I was in the United States. In fact, nobody even checked my blood pressure. So the headaches I was having, I was hiking in the desert every day, trying to lose weight. And I thought it was altitude sickness. Never checked my blood pressure because I always had abnormally low blood pressure all my life. In fact, when I was pregnant with my children, it was a problem. So it wasn't on my radar to check. So I saw my doctor. I was put on the medication, visited my sons, came back through Australia, saw my daughter in Australia. And she said to me, Mom, you've got to slow down. I've bought you a vacation to Bali. You're going to go through Bali. It's a 10-day spa vacation. You'll get a massage every day. You've got to look after yourself, Mom. Fortunately, I listened to her. On the 9th day, I was walking in a rice field in a small village called Saba. The next thing I remember, I'm in intensive care. I have collapsed in this rice field. It's 5 days later. I'm on life support. And I wake up and my taxi driver is sitting at the foot of my bed. I had hired this man for the week. And most people in Bali don't get paid a lot of money. And if the person doesn't own the car, it means they're making maybe $2, $3 a day. And this man was working for his brother-in-law. So I said to him, if I pick you up every day on time, I will pay you an extra $20. So he was on time every day. He would pick me up at the corner of the block. Because of traffic, he couldn't come to the front of the hotel. He only knew my name was Gertrude. I didn't have my passport on me. He didn't know what hotel I was in. When I collapsed, he didn't wait for an ambulance. He put me on his shoulder, put me in his car, drove me to the nearest private hospital in this village. I woke up in a high-rise building surrounded by green rice. When I looked outside the window, I thought I was dead. It was such a surreal experience to find a building in the middle of a rice field. And the doctor said that if he had waited for an ambulance, I wouldn't be here. He saved my life. When I was able to talk, he said to me, Gertrude, the extra $20 you gave me that week helped me pay for school fees for my children for 2 years. He said he managed to buy them shoes. He managed to buy them backpacks. This was just one random act of kindness, just an extra $200 that I had. The other miracle was when I started traveling around the world, I started sponsoring children in orphanages wherever I traveled. For me, I think orphaned children belong to all of us. That as people, we have a responsibility to help wherever we can. So I went to Indonesia in 2001. I was the keynote speaker at an event, and I had raised $1,000 to give away to an orphanage. I found an orphanage 10 minutes from the hotel where I was staying. And I spent the day with these 200 children, playing with them, telling them stories. And when I was leaving, the nuns who ran this orphanage said to me, Gertrude, we've got 4 girls who have turned 18. And if we let them go, they will end up in prostitution. We need to send them to college. How much does it cost? $500 a year. So I came back to New Zealand. I raised money and sponsored 4 little girls in an orphanage in Bali 21 years ago. I have a picture on Facebook handing my business card to each of the girls and saying, I want to know what happens to you. Please keep in touch. I heard nothing for 7 years. In the 7th year, one of those little girls found me on Facebook. She wrote me a beautiful message. She said, Gertrude, you are my African mother. The money that you paid for me to go to college helped me do a computer course. I have put 3 of my little brothers through university because of that gift. I did a computer course because I want to be like you. She now works for a cosmetic surgeon in Denpasar. And she said, if you ever come back to Indonesia, you have a daughter here. Come and stay with me. So I go to Bali all the time. I run my writers' retreats in Bali. But this holiday, I didn't go and stay with her. I did have lunch with her the day before. My taxi driver remembered this. He called her workplace and said, Victoria, the woman I was with yesterday, is in intensive care. I have no way of contacting her family. And that one random act of kindness 21 years ago reconnected me with my kids because I had taken the kids to Bali. They were connected to her on Facebook, and she was able to phone my kids and let them know that I was in hospital. So I'm sharing this story because we don't bump into people by accident. Right now, the world is in crisis. COVID-19 has created a crisis around the world. The Chinese write the word for crisis with 2 words, These two symbols stand for danger and opportunity. COVID-19 has presented us with an amazing opportunity. The danger is there, yes. We are literally a breath away from affecting and infecting each other right now. But as people, as human beings, we have an opportunity to do something different. So what are you going to do about the COVID pandemic? How are you going to change your life? COVID has given us an opportunity to pause, to really reflect on where we are and where we want to go. That's why I called this presentation Crossroads. A lot of relationships are collapsing. People are being forced to face their stuff, to be in the house with somebody who normally goes to work. People are being faced with making choices, whether they want to stay in a job or create something new. So where are you in your life right now? What are you going to do with the COVID pandemic? And what I'm finding personally is that COVID is connecting people in the most magical way. Everybody is online. If you want to create an online business, this is the time to do it. So that's what I've done. Now, I'm going to summarize with a few of my life principles. Whenever I hit rock bottom, I jump. I jump into the abyss, knowing that I will grow my wings on the way down. There is a certain happiness in being silly and ridiculous in life. I used to play with my children all the time. So what are you going to do with your life? Are you going to jump and take that leap of faith and change it? Or are you going to stay stuck where you are right now? And when you hit rock bottom, you have to get excited because the only way from down is up. When I hit rock bottom with heart failure, I lost everything. I lost a 4.5 million property investing business. I lost my relationship. I lost my home. Everything I had was gone. But I got excited because I knew I could get myself out of this. And I believe in dancing like nobody's watching. Be joyful. Look for the things that bring you joy. I started going back to dancing tango every Wednesday. I met my second husband in the middle of all of this while I'm recovering from heart failure. And that is another magical story I will share with you tomorrow. Surround yourself with positive people. The most positive people in my life are my kids. Although I don't have them with me physically, I connect with them every single day through Zoom. I make appointments with every one of my kids. The women who are in my inner circle, again, are very positive people. They say that you are a sum total of the people who are around you. So who do you have in your inner circle right now? Who are you surrounding yourself with? And then look for ways to laugh. Laughter is medicine. Laughter can help you get over depression. Watch those funny comic shows, videos. Look for mentors who can help you, take you from where you are to where you want to go, and don't try and reinvent the wheel. The wheel has already been invented. These are some of my mentors. And then when you can find your voice, speak with passion, speak with confidence and with grace. Because somebody is waiting to hear your story. There is someone out there who will find light at the end of their tunnel by hearing how you got to where you are right now. Share your vision, share your dreams. I went and bought these fake Oscars. I carry them all over the world when I'm presenting, and I tell people that I'm the first African woman to write, direct, and produce an Oscar award-winning screenplay. I believe I can do it. And now I've started this amazing movement called the Her Story Circle, where I show women how to manifest their dreams. So that's where we're going to stop today. We have 9 minutes before this mastermind ends. I now want us to just come online, unmute, and I want to get your feedback. Where are you and where do you want to go with your life right now? Anybody? I'm going to stop talking now. It's your turn. We'll start with you, Heidi. Unmute yourself. I think you're muted.
All right. Of course you are. You're going to start with me. That it's really perfect timing for this question, because I am in the middle of reading a lot of books, self-help, personal transformation, and also having just now, with the help of Napoleon Hill, uncovered my persistent burning desire in life. And that is to, and that's going to come as a shock to you that I didn't know this already, Gertrude, but it's to inspire at least 1 billion people to discover laughter and joy, leading them to greater happiness.
Oh, wow.
I never recognized that that was my persistent burning desire until reading Napoleon Hill and reaching out to friends and going, what is your persistent burning desire? And when I got replies, I was surprised because someone I wrote to was extraordinarily busy, big, influencing kind of person. And he wrote back, and what he said resonated with me. And I said, oh, wait, okay, so he's huge. And I'm amazed and grateful that he wrote back to me. And I can't copy his persistent burning desire, but it sure resonates with me.
Yes.
And I asked a friend why about it. We talked on the phone, friends for 30 years. And she said, I remember back to when we first met, you were on a dance floor. We met on the dance floor. And I said, I'm going to be friends with her. She makes me smile.
Yeah.
And as she spoke, I saw an image like a movie of my life. And that's what I do. When I go to movies, when I walk, when I'm out exercising, I make sure I'm exercising where people are going to be driving past me so that they can see my smile and see my joy. And they're honking and waving and rolling their windows down and saying, hi, that's so much fun. I want to come join you.
Oh, I love it.
Or you made my day.
That is so beautiful.
So
You're
now
being
I'm
the
trying to
full
figure out how to
expression
make
of who you
this.
really are.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to make this what I do.
I can show you how, because I was given a formula. It's a 10 by 10 by 10 formula. I'll be sharing it tomorrow in tomorrow's webinar, because I'm looking for thought leaders, women who want to create tribes, who want to start a movement, who want to create a critical mass of people to come behind their principles, their ideas. So that will be in tomorrow's event. Thank you. This is going to be fun. Who wants to share next? Nicole or Leah? Just unmute and just jump in here. Give us where you're at and where you want to go.
I can start. Nicole
Yes, go for it.
Still muted, I can see.
Yes.
Okay. After I lost my business with this COVID thing, I was quite a bit down. So I went through reading a lot of books. I went through courses and I signed up for a couple of courses. And I'm doing things, I'm creating things, but I keep searching what will make my heart sing, what? And it's not coming easily. It's still in process of creation. I come up with the thing that, like, God gave me this thing. I'm always positive, even in very, very down, when I'm very at the bottom, I always smile. And people seems to be like my smile, they getting engaged with me. So I thought, maybe happiness is my thing. Maybe I should start talking about happiness more. And maybe because I read a lot about happiness and I see that it is a thermostat. It's like thermostat, and you can 40%, you can change it. sort of some percentage, it's how you done, how you were born, but 40% you can improve it, you can go up. And that's what I want to talk about more, because people don't realize that. And that's where I am now. I started the way, but it's going a bit slowly. This where I am.
Well, we are going to accelerate that. Don't you worry. We'll put it on steroids. And there's a theme here already, right? The whole thing around joy and happiness really being what we want in our lives and being able to share that with other people. I love that. Nicole, jump in here. Where are you at? Where do you want to go? Nicola, sorry.
It's okay. Nicola, you can call me Nikki because that's easier.
Okay, Nikki.
Okay, so where am I at and where do I want to go? So I have been on a journey, let's say, and trying to do basically two things simultaneously. I'm growing what I call a spiritual empowerment and life transformation community that I named from my first book. My first book is called Reborn Faith Kaya, and it was through my depression and my divorce, very similar to your story, and then how I rebound from my rock bottom and how I Kaya. Kaya is an Hebrew word that means to live fully, to live victoriously, to live well, to live abundantly, to live. I would not die in my valley, but live. So out of my my life story, I've built a community around that that's called Kaya Club. And I post spiritual empowerment posts, mostly that on Facebook. But in that club, when COVID-19 came, I lost my corporate contract because I'm a consultant. I'm a transformation consultant. I do change management consulting for large corporations, for government agencies, mergers and acquisition, transformation of business, introduction of business. Any form of technology or any form of things that's triggering change, as a strategic renewal. So that's what I do in the corporate environment. And I'm living my purpose based on what happened to me when I went through my situation. Homeless, jobless, friendless, depressed, going through my own wilderness season, lost my home, fighting for my kids, going through a depression, 5-year divorce battle. I was paying spousal support, didn't get child support for my kids. So that whole thing came up in a book regarding how God helped me to overcome that situation. And it's in my first book that's called Reborn Faith Kaya, a journey through depression and devastation to deliverance. And that's my first book. And from that book, I've built around it a community. I want to grow that community. And it's a Christ-centered community. And it's beyond a church in the sense that we do daily devotions every morning, which is why my voice is gone. I pray fervently. We have started from day 1, and today is day 286. And we're going on till day 365. It's called 365 Live Fearlessly. That's the series we're doing.
Okay.
And I have a bunch of other things that I'm doing, but I really want to grow the community. I'm very active on social media. And one of the challenges I've been having is how to migrate my social media followers to my personal, to Kaya Club. And on top of that, so that's what I'm doing on my, what you call it, my purpose-driven side. Okay. On my corporate side, go ahead.
I was going to say in the third webinar on day 3, I'll be showing you how to migrate your communities. If you've got them on Facebook, on other platforms, there's an amazing platform called Mighty Networks. I'll be sharing a link to Mighty Networks and showing you how to grow your tribe through that. So sorry, continue.
Yeah, I do have, I already have a community that's called Kaya Club. It's actually similar to Mighty Network, but it's different. I actually own it. Okay. I have an app as well working on, I have an Android app and I'm working on getting the Apple app going. And I'm doing coaching and mentoring. I do branding. I do youth empowerment, women empowerment. I'm doing manhood empowerment because I've been trying to have a women community and I can't because I have more men followers than women followers.
Oh, that's
And I'm
interesting.
doing, yeah.
That's very interesting. Now, I
Very
can sense
interesting.
a Caribbean accent, where
Yeah, I'm
part of the world are
Jamaican.
you?
I'm Jamaican.
You're
Right.
Jamaican.
Yeah, I'm Jamaican, but I'm living in Canada.
I come to Jamaica all the time. The Ministry
Yeah,
of Culture in Jamaica hired
yeah,
me to come
nice.
and
Yeah,
run, set up women's cooperatives in Jamaica. I've been there several times.
awesome. Right,
Beautiful.
right. Yeah, I've been in Canada for about 20 years, but what happened, especially since I've been COVID, is that I spend so much time with my kids and with and coaching Jamaicans. My Jamaican accent is coming up a lot stronger because I'm not really
Okay.
in corporate. And I'm not as much in corporate since COVID. So I've
Yeah.
been since COVID, my contract, I was with a contract in British Columbia in Canada, and then that contract got ended. So since then, I just came and I returned to Ontario, which is where my family is. And I've just been working on building my business, building the community. We have about 1,800 people in the community now that are registered in an account. Not all
Okay.
are active, but then I have about 50 or 70,000 followers in LinkedIn and Facebook. But to move them over into the community, it's been a little bit challenging, but that's because I'm trying to figure out how to get a huge migration to move them over. Maybe because I feed them too much on my social media, because I do feed them, and maybe they don't get anything in addition in the community, because everything I'm feeding in the community, I'm feeding to social media. But that's where most of them are right now. So that's been my, and then how to monetize
That
the
following.
community. Yeah, how to monetize the following has been another thing. So there are, I do have a not-for-profit, and I was just awarded a grant. So we're waiting on disbursement there. And then I have a for-profit, which is what I do my consultants around. And I have two community. Kaya Club is Christ-based and Christ-centered. And then I have another community, which is corporate, which I don't, which is much lighter on faith. You cannot get away from me that I'm a Christian, because that's who my branding is. I'm first and foremost a believer. So, but in my corporate community, I'm much lighter on my faith, because that is more it's to corporate and government, and I recognize all faiths in that environment. So that's where I'm at right now and what I'm trying to do. Why I jump onto your call? Maybe because I was more curious because of the way you described it, and where I'm at right now. I'm just really, I'm very it resonates with me when you talk about your vision and your mindset. Those things are some of the things that resonated with me and what I'm thinking about. I'm just reflecting when the COVID-19 happened and my contract ended. I was looking around and really talking to God, like having this moment, this conversation with God. And I'm like, what's now? What's next? And then he turned my eyes on my book, and then he showed me, that's my first book. I have a second book since then, and I'm launching about 5 books before the end of the year. So yeah, I'm launching devotionals. They're all devotionals though. So one is the 365 devotional, and that one is it's 365 days. So we break it into 4 series. So a book per quarter. And then I launched Daniel Fast, 21 days journey to wellness. That one has been a really good one. That one has done very well. We launched it last year, and we're doing a follow-up journal this year. I have about 30 women who are doing the program right now. So what I found is what I really want to do, and I'm kind of figuring out what God is doing, but the moment that I can resonate with you when you woke up in that rice field was when just when the COVID-19 happened, and I was asking him, what's now? What's next? Should I stay in Vancouver? Should I go back in Ontario? What does this mean? How long am I going to be out? And then I had no community. I had no Daniel Fast book at the time. And Rebound Faith Kaya wasn't doing very well. And I wasn't pushing it because I was fed. My contracts are usually well paid. So usually when I'm in my contracts, I do my ministry more, what I would say, on the side as opposed to more focused, but I'm always ministering. And then he turned my eyes to my book, and I looked at my book, and he says, everything you need is inside that book. And from that book.
So you're divinely guided. I think you just have to trust that.
Yeah.
So we're going to stop here, ladies, for today. What I want you to do as homework for tomorrow is to get clear. A year from now, where do you see yourself? Spiritually, financially, health-wise, get 100% clear. That's number one. Number two, what are your top 3 goals? The top 3 goals that you have for yourself for the next 12 months. So tomorrow we'll be exploring that. The first part of the mastermind tomorrow, I will be sharing where I'm at, what I've done, because when you listen to my story, you will see reflections of my story in yours. And that's the power of storytelling. Somebody will talk about what they're doing and you'll think, oh yeah, what about this? What about that? The second part of tomorrow is going to be you really committing, putting down on paper how we're going to help you to reach those goals and help you fulfill the vision. So if it is a financial goal that you have, what does that look like? When I work with women in Africa, they'll say to me, Gertrude, if I could make $200 this year, US, that'll be fantastic. So $200 to a woman in Africa is a lot of money. To a woman in the Western world, it's not a lot of money, correct? So what is the exact figure that you want to make in the next 12 months? They say that if you set a ship on a course without a destination, will it ever get there? So we need to know what the destination is. If it is a following you're trying to create, Heidi, you said you are wanting to connect. What did you say? 1 billion? I have a formula to show you how to do that. So how big do you want your groups to grow? So we're going to stop there because I've gone over time. I will share this video on LinkedIn. If I have your email, I'll email it to you as well. Please share it. Invite 10 friends so that we have more women on this call tomorrow. Okay? Bye-bye, everybody. Wonderful to have met you. Looking forward to seeing what we can create.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you.
I love your story. You're a great storyteller.
Thank you.
I wouldn't stop
Thank you,
listening to
Nikki.
your story.
I'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Take
All
care.
right. Thank you.